Welcome to Your Business, Your Life with Matt DeFrancesco, your personal financial technician. Whether you've had years of success in your business or just starting out, Highlift Financial can help you create a vision for your business, life, and family, and align these for generational wealth. So as they say, what happens in your life affects your business. And now on to the show.
Before we jump back in, can you share with us again, Matt, about you, your company, and then we're going to jump into other things.
Yeah, sure. So again, it's Matt DeFrancesco. I've been in financial services for the last 16 years, and my focus has been with the small to mid-sized family business, kind of helping them to navigate all the intricacies of that business. And my particular focus now is in the automotive repair, or automotive collision space, but I work with a number of different family businesses that are out there. So that's why I think this stuff is so important, because many times, many family businesses have never really thought beyond what's happening on the day-to-day basis. And these are really critical things because, life throws wrenches to you, and you need to be prepared for that to both not only protect yourself, but to protect your family and your business.
Awesome. And I know, so we kind of jumped from exit planning to tax minimization a little bit in there. But you touch on one thing that I absolutely love, which was employee succession. So
Yes.
Be Eminent, our two core values are culture and quality. And we put culture first because we know that breeds your quality.
Yes.
And it's just like you talked about earlier, when there's something wrong in the business, there's probably something wrong at home. Mm-hmm. So it's the same thing for us. We know that the culture and the happiness of all of our employees is so important to the outcome that they're going to produce for us. So I would much rather them being a happy, healthy family environment before they even get the work done.
Right.
Because I know if they're in that environment, they're going to get the work done without question.
Yes.
And so you talked about, succession development. We have on here also employee retention. So if it's a good transition, I would love to kind of talk about those two things of how they work into, the business finance life plan that we're going through the assessment.
Yeah. And I think you really hit on something that's a kind of a hot button for me, is this idea of culture, creating culture. Mm-hmm. And I think that is, and I just kind of learned this over the years, that is the most important thing for a business owner to be able to do, is to develop a culture that allows people to know that they're cared for, all right, that they're valued, that they'll be listened to, all right, and that they can have some input and buy-in into the business. And I think so that's one of the key things that I try to do. It's interesting because I mentioned about being at my Coach Joe's leadership conference. And that's one of the things that we talked about. I told a story about one of my clients and collision guys are not readers. Okay. They're typically not. And so I was always talking about these books that I was reading, because I'm a personal development junkie. And so finally it was like, I got him to read a book, and he and I can't even remember, it might've been Lencioni's 5 Dysfunctions of a Team, or it was one of those books. I can't remember which one. It might have even been Extreme Ownership from Jocko Willett. And he's like, all of a sudden he read this book and he was like, this is phenomenal. So then he started reading another book, and then he's like, my guys need to read this book. I'm like, well, no crap. I've been telling you that, And so, but anyway, so then he got his guys to start no, you need to read this book. And so they started reading it. And so, now what they do now, we'll kind of fast forward a little bit. They all read the same book. Okay. And every week they get together for their book club, and they talk about what they're learning in these books. And so what he's doing, it doesn't even realize it, is he's developing leaders, right? To lead leaders, to lead leaders, to lead leaders. And that's huge from a cultural standpoint. And this is how, again, how it falls into exit planning, is that if you've got a bunch of rock stars that are leaders and know how to read and can, do as what, Jocko Willett calls the downward, pushing down leadership downward. So everybody has accountability for the overall team. That becomes very powerful. And that makes your exit planning strategy much simpler. Okay. And it also gives you options, because, in some cases we might institute what's called an ESOP, an employee stock option purchase. All right. So that eventually what happens is these key employees end up buying the business.
Okay.
Okay. And you could do that in a very tax efficient way. So I think culture what first thing it does, it lets people know that they're being listened to and that somebody cares about them. It helps. So then that smooths things over from the family standpoint. Cause a lot of these guys, they have employees that they have issues at home. Okay. They're in a pending divorce, has drug problem. Okay. Or be experiencing maybe health problems, things like that. And this is causing stress, and they're bringing that into work. As much as they try not to, they're going to bring it in. And if the owner can, instead of looking and saying, you're not getting your job done, be able to take the guy aside and be able to, say something's not right. I can tell. Talk to me. All right. They know that they care. People don't care what you know until they know that you care.
Yeah.
And that's powerful. And I think that's really powerful. And then all of this just spills over into your value drivers, increasing the value of the business, and eventually to exit planning.
Yeah. And I would say, I think that's why, so on our employee retention, that's a very green light for us. Right. Probably because we have those conversations. One of the things that we do in our company is we do one-on-ones with each employee. And at the end, we ask them, do you still want to work here? And if not, how can I help you go to where you want to be? Or how can I help you stay here? Yeah. And we ask them every week, and they it's so funny because at some point they're just yes, I want to work here. Before I can even ask the question.
Right. Yeah.
And so I say, with true confidence, I don't think anybody on our team wants to actively leave the company. And that is our goal. But we're super transparent with, if you ever want to leave, please tell me and I will help you. I'll help you find where you need to be. I think that's
huge because again, it's not always going to be the best fit.
Yeah.
It's not always going to work that way. But, but them knowing that just shows again that you care and that you've got their back. And I think that's, that's vital in any business. And like I said, that's one of the things that I preach a lot is this idea of we need to develop culture within the business. And I've got one of my clients who this is a real issue because the guy's a control freak, and it's actually throwing off our exit planning strategy because he's got a son and a daughter that are in the business. The son just likes doing the mechanical stuff, and the daughter, she's kind of getting trained in the operations, but dad will not let go. And it's the last person who was bitching in his ear is the one that, squeaky wheel gets oil. And there's an office manager too, who's been with him for 30 years. Okay. And she's pulling her hair out. I mean, and I'm trying to tell the guy, look, we got to change something here, this culture. All right. Because you're going to frustrate your kids to the point where they're going to say, we don't want this thing. This is a nightmare. Okay. And then you've got this office manager who's been with you 30 years, who knows the business inside and out, is basically keeping you afloat. You're going to lose her.
Yeah.
Culture is probably the biggest thing to work on. And it's probably the easiest if you can get the owner to start buying in on why it's important.
Yeah. And just like you talked about control.
Yeah.
Even when you hire that first employee, I think that first employee is the hardest one to give up the control of.
Yeah.
Because you've done everything yourself for all these years or months or however long it's been. And all of a sudden now, you need to give a piece away and trust somebody else to do. And it's tough.
That's hard.
Even for me, at first giving it away, and it definitely becomes easier as you go. Keep adding people in, because then it's each person, and then training though the management to give up the next piece of control. So maybe his daughter was in, a different role where she was customer service based, and now she has to trust somebody else to talk to those customers while she takes over operation. And it's definitely, but it comes down to control is one of the things. Just kind of being able to give up that control is crucial. But I think it all comes down to trust.
Yes.
Trusting your employees and, not being so fearful of those things.
Yeah.
And, it takes a lot of mindset, and reading books, just like you're mentioning, is the way to start being able to shift those things and the practices.
Right. Yeah. Lencioni in 5 Dysfunctions of a Team, the foundation, he uses a pyramid example, but the foundation of that pyramid is trust. And he said one of the biggest, that's usually when there's dysfunction on a team, it's because there's no trust.
Yeah.
So when there's no trust, then we can't have conflict. And people think of conflict as something that's a negative, but actually we need to have healthy conflict to be able to, think about it in your marriage. If you your husband might have one idea about what schooling for, your child. You have a different idea, and you guys have to have some conflict to get some resolution to that. Okay. Mm-hmm. But if there's not that foundation of trust, you'll never have that healthy conflict.
Yeah.
So, and then once if you don't have healthy conflict, then nobody's going to hold each other accountable, which, and then the whole thing starts to spiral. So that's really where the foundation comes in, is building trust. And it was interesting. I know as I do these family meetings, I had one time where usually just in the first meeting, what I do is I have the founders or the who's ever in charge give the family story. Okay, here's how the business started. Here's how I got involved, yada, yada, yada. People kind of think, well, why would you do that? Because, most of the time the families don't even know the story. And so then we started having dialogue about different things, and there was it got ugly. I mean, it was, there was blood and guts and tears and all this stuff. But as we came out of the meeting, I was talking to the wife, and she looked at me and she goes, you know what? Thank you for this. She goes, my husband, because he's third generation in the business. Well, actually second generation, because his dad and his uncles started the business, and they never let him have any input like that. And she goes, thank you for allowing my kids to have input.
Yeah.
And again, now we're starting to build that foundation of trust. Mm-hmm. And, it's interesting because like one of the comments this client would always make is that, because he wouldn't make decisions on stuff. And his line was, and he learned this from his uncles and his father, not making a decision is making a decision. But it's funny. I just had about 2 weeks ago, I just had a conversation with the son, and he's like, you know what? That's BS. He goes, because we're stagnating right now. And so now that's part of the dialogue we'll have at our next meeting, is about, okay, you know what? We've learned that this is not an appropriate way to work. And what it's doing, it's causing stress on everybody else. You need to start making decisions. And it's not, sometimes we get so worried about making the right decision. I remember a mentor of mine used to say, don't try to make the right decision, make a decision and then make it the right decision.
Definitely, because that's the worst. Indecisiveness is worse than making a wrong decision.
Yeah.
Because at least you can grow, you can fail and try again if you've made a decision. But if you don't, it's what ifs it becomes. It becomes the coulds, the shoulds, the what ifs. And so you just can't do it. And having a team that can make decisions, know that their value on their input is crucial. And especially in the sales business, if that's where you're headed,
right?
Because, who wants to buy a company where everybody doesn't want to talk to each other?
Right.
Who regrets getting on a Zoom call and having to be together.
Yeah.
And things like that. A big thing is just kind of the emotional intelligence about behind it, the conflict, because I agree as well. Conflict is very good. And one thing I tell people all the time is I am not empathetic. I do not exceed well in that thing. It just, I don't relate well to others, but I recognize it. But I'm very good with emotional intelligence, and I can admit that hey, I don't understand this, but we still need to handle this. Yeah. So let's move forward. Here's the things. I sent an email out last week. I was in the middle of conference. My team frustrated the heck out of me. They all know they did.
Yeah.
Instead of just letting that frustration build up, no, I sent them an email, said, this is not okay. This is what's wrong. This is how it needs to get fixed. And at the PS, I said, hey guys, we're all humans and we're all going to make mistakes. Do not let this hold you back from making another mistake. Because if everything was perfect all the time, we'd be aliens not on Earth, doing all these things that are perfect all the time. And so, but I had to have that conflict so that we can move past it versus just be like, okay, we're done. Because that's what happens when you don't have that conflict, or the communication is, you just kind of give up on it. But by being able to having those open conversations, that's only going to make your business evaluation better.
Oh, exactly. No. You're exactly right. It all goes hand in hand. And so I'm sure some of the listeners are going, what the heck are they talking about? Emotional intelligence and culture and stuff.
Reading all these books.
This isn't financial stuff, but see, it all filters together. And that's why, the high idea of your life is your business, your life. It's they all act with each other. And so, and like I said, I'm one client. I remember it was the client successful, but he called me one day and he says, hey, can I get some of your time? And I said, yeah, sure. He goes, can you give me a morning? Okay. So we go meet this coffee shop, the upstairs, and he like an upstairs room. And we go up, and the guy just starts spilling his guts at me about his marriage is in shambles, and feel he's compatible with his wife, how much stress it's caused. The kids, he's like, they're in the business. They incapable. What am I going to do? And finally, he just, and so I'm kind of like, well, oh crap. So I just started telling him a little bit about my story, and we started then working through a lot of this. And again, the bottom line is I developed enough trust with him that now he could open up with me, and now I can help him. And you know what ended up? I mean, a lot of it was I had to get his wife and the kids to a counselor. I'm not a psychologist. I don't do that kind of stuff, or a psychiatrist, but we got him to somebody to help to do that. And it helped to resolve a lot of those issues. And, now we can move forward, and we're moving forward on this whole planning process now.
Because your family and all that is so big of an impact. Like that's one thing we're looking at right now is actually getting a therapist that's on retainer for the company.
Yeah.
And this is
I think it's
a plan for the next year, but that anybody could come in and say, hey, I need to talk to somebody, and not feel like, because we have, of course, opened our door, but at the same time, when your boss says, hey, you can come talk to me about anything, you're still going to be hesitant.
Of course.
It is what it is. So as open as we are, and so we want to be able to create that space that they can go and literally just talk to somebody and not have any fear that it will ever come back to us.
Right.
But to be able to offload some of those family burdens with the help of somebody to work through those things. Because, all those things play such an important role, because, say one of our employees was in the middle of a divorce and all of a sudden you're not seeing the podcast come out. Like, what happened? Where'd it go? Like, what's going on? And it comes down to, they didn't have the support at home, and it's affecting how their work's going. And so now everybody's scrambling to get stuff in place. But if they have that conversation ahead of time, it makes it really easy for them to be able to compartmentalize as best as possible and still do their job at top quality while they're working through those things at home. Because, as humans, we can only fit so much in our head, whether that's figuring out our finances, figuring out our life, or figuring out, how to get the job done. So having all those things, whether it's in the family, whether it's your employee retention, is so crucial to any business on any level. And it's one of the things, like when people ask, like, what can I talk on? I actually say leadership. I never say marketing.
Right.
Because that's more important. Like leading and culture is so much more important than anything else, I think.
Oh,
it's going to make it all better.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. And leadership is where it all comes down to. And too many times, either we want to be the leaders, we want to have the Superman shirt on, but that's not effective leadership. True leadership is teaching leaders to teach leaders to teach leaders to teach leaders, and that we keep doing that. And, like in your case, I think one of the things is, and this is where the personality assessments, I think, really become helpful, is you want to make sure you have the right people in the right seats. A lot of times in a business, they're having a struggle and they can't figure out. And it's like, well, we got this employee, and she's, maybe she's in the finance department but she's making mistakes and calculations and the books aren't always balanced properly. And so after we identify, but they really like her. Here's the thing. So they really like the person. She's a wonderful person, but she's just not capable of doing the job. Do I fire her? Well, we do a personality assessment and we find out she's a high I. She's a people person. So why is she doing finance? She's not a detail person. So let's move her to customer service. All of a sudden, the client moves them to customer service. Everything starts going smoothly. And then we find somebody who's detail oriented, move them into finance, and boom, guess what? Everything's works very smoothly. And that's part of being a leader, I think. It's not saying that somebody is incapable, but maybe they're in the wrong spot, which is on me. Which is on me. That's Jocko Willett in Extreme Ownership. That's exactly what they talk about. Is extreme ownership is about, we take the extreme ownership. If something's not going right, it all comes down to the leader first. Yeah. Okay. And if your leaders are not doing their job, that still falls on you. Okay.
All right. I'm definitely going to read that book. I have it on there as well as the 5.
Yeah. That's a great one. That's a really great one. That's one of the best leadership books I've ever read.
Awesome. Well, that's exciting to hear. We'll post any books that you recommend or that I mentioned throughout this for everybody that's listening to be able to go back and read them. And I know we're about to hit the hour, so we'll have to
Okay.
pause here. So anyone that's listening, if you're like, I want to take this survey and I want Matt to go through this with me.
Okay. Yeah.
We're going to post a link that you can go directly take this survey, and then he'll reach out to you to schedule an appointment, because just like you're hearing us go through this right now, he's going to do that with your survey. So you can't just get the survey and be like, oh, okay, I know exactly what I need to do. It unfortunately doesn't work that way, because we're not financial advisors. We are business owners in our own right, and we know what we're doing in our business. And this is what he does in his business every day to help business owners create that plan, whether it's to grow their evaluation, to just, establish all that business. If you're a serial entrepreneur and you want to just do this every 5 years, he'll help you do that too.
Heck
or if you're at that stage where you're like, hey, I'm ready to exit this. Who do I give it to? How do I do it? He can help you with that. So we will put that link in there. And I'm going to post my pie chart so you can kind of see what we're going off of and looking at.
Right.
And if you're on YouTube, you've seen Matt putting it up on screens. So you can see like all those different pieces. I know we have, probably half of them still to go through. So we will talk again to bring these in.
Right.
Is there anything else you want to add before we kind of jump off for today?
No, I think the key is that, and you hit on this, that it's not something that you do and then like look at the pie chart and say, okay, I know what my priorities are. We have to talk through them. It's just like what we talked about. Okay, like you're not looking to exit, but exit objectives and maximum price are two of your higher ones. To me, that doesn't make any sense. Mm-hmm. So let's talk through this. And what we found was that, no, you're looking at raising the value of the business. Okay. So really value drivers is probably a little higher, and also your tax minimization. And then as we have the conversation, we start to see other areas that we need to work on. So then we can develop an accurate plan. So I think it's important. This becomes the talking point, but then we need to talk through this to really identify what next steps need to be taken.
Exactly. Because we're going to take this evaluation, or somebody's going to take this evaluation. And just like I did, I'm looking at how do I minimize my taxes?
Right.
So I hear the language and we read it a different way. And we're all going to do that. It's not just us that's going to do it. And it's because, we are not financial advisors. We are not in that space of accounting or tax and all those different things. And so when we read stuff, we're going to all read it in a different way. And, somebody's is going to come back and be perfect how it's supposed to be, but very unlikely everything's going to be skewed just a little bit. And that's where Matt comes in to take you through these. And there's actually 16, I numbered them because I was like, let me put them in order. So there's 16 things that he's going to take you through depending on where you're at on this spectrum. Right. So take the survey, reach out to Matt, and he's going to go through this whole plan with you. Right. So, and then we will meet again to go over some of the other ones. Like we hit on the big ones, like we hit all my big reds.
Okay. Yes. We got the big reds done. We got a few of the oranges too. So
a few oranges. Yeah. We got a few oranges, one of the greens, because I just love employees and leadership and all that side of it.
That's right.
So some of the ones that we still have to look at is maybe like the income needs. And some of those are for one, asset protection, business consideration. So we can come back to look at some of those ones. Yeah. But yeah, so thank you so much, Matt, for joining me and being on the Virtual U.S. Financial Advisor podcast. And I hope all of our listeners, whether you're in the automotive industry or any kind of family business, are going to use Matt as their financial quarterback.
That's it. There you go. There you go. Right. And one last thing is, even if there's no obligation to fill it out and to have that initial call. So don't think that it's like you're going to be committed to anything. It's more just a conversation. So.
Awesome. Well, thank you.
Well, I hope you now see how important having employee retention plans is in the overall plan for both building value and creating an exit plan. So I hope you got something out of that. Join us next week as we're going to cover the remaining topics of family succession, succession development, and also family consideration. So these, again, as we try to create multi-generational wealth, these are important things to think about. So, and again, like I said, we have some really great ways of helping families to achieve the things that they want to achieve in life. So anyway, we'll look forward to seeing you next episode. And just remember, as always, every financial plan's different. So if you're interested in the assessment that I've done with Hannah, go to our website, highliftfinancial.com, and click on the Let's Talk button. You can get on my calendar. We can schedule 20 to 30 minutes to just chat and see if it's something that's right for you. So with that, have a great day. God bless, and we'll see you next episode. Hey, I really want to thank you for listening to the Your Business, Your Life podcast. If you want to be notified when new episodes become available, click the subscribe button below.
The information covered and posted represents the views and opinions of the guest and does not necessarily represent the views or opinions of High Lift Financial. The content has been made available for informational and educational purposes only. The content is not intended to be a substitute for professional investment, legal, or tax advice. Always seek the advice of your financial advisor or other qualified professional with any questions you may have regarding your business or personal planning. DeFrancesco Financial Concierge, LLC, DBA High Lift Financial, is a registered investment advisor. Registration with the United States Securities and Exchange Commission or any state security authority does not imply a certain level of skill or training.